Armenian-American style influenced by the second generation in the Bay Area and LA and
the East
New York,
Coast.
that you will hear strains of Charlie Parker.
Oh no, don't put that in there.
No?
No strains of Charlie Parker.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about strains of other musical greats? No? Would you prefer not? Do you have a pen on you? No, it's okay. I'll get one. Okay, so I'll take that out. But the rest of it is pretty good. I'm going to mention that what you had said about John Belazikian playing for,
Schindler's List. Oh, yeah.
And he's a colleague of yours.
Yes, yes.
He's so modest, for God's sake.
He's a major influence.
Yes, and I mean, and you're a musician.
Well, yes, I'm a good musician. But with that, I got, just when I came into this world, I just was one, and I was fortunate.
I remember when you were a little kid running around with that
recorder.
The recorder, but also around your neck you had the photographic thing, the focusing thing.
Oh, the light meter.
Yeah, the light meter. You would go on that thing all the time, which was absolutely fantastic.
It's crazy.
And I used to say,
I gave that. One Christmas I gave that light meter because John said something about the light meter, and so I gave it to John.
Oh, did you? I bet he loved it.
Oh yeah.
Because then you never were without that. You always.
I know, it's just really
always,
fun.
which was great.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do? I'm not sure.
Play for like 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Oh yeah. I mean, I could play for less.
No, play for 15 minutes and then take your bows. And I'm so sorry. I ordered a sheet cake.
Yeah.
No, I did. And you know what happened?
No.
Safeway had a power outage. I paid for the sheet cake the other day.
Yeah.
When I went there today, the store was closed. I could not get in. That's why I have all these stupid little things.
Awesome. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
I had Happy Birthday Paul on the bottom. And also the name of the book on the top.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, they know the look on the top. It's important.
So play.
Oh, yeah.
And you play so well.
I mean, are people going to be visiting, or are they just playing?
You're playing, and then, lively or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever appeals to you. Whatever feels good to you.
Okay.
Okay. Is sure, great. I'm going to introduce Paul. Is he going to play a little bit before you start? Yeah. Okay. So the thing is now, you're not amplifying. Whoever's doing it, okay.
And then we'll get out of your way.
Yes.
No problem. In my way, out of my way is all.
Okay. So let's turn it a little bit. Okay. Oh my goodness.
More people coming.
This is wonderful. We are so excited to see everybody here. Is that working? I would assume it's working.
Can you hear us? Okay.
Good.
A little louder, though,
Okay.
I think. No one's going to hear it.
Okay, I need to check that in as far as amplification, recording and stuff. So
Okay.
don't do too much until I get back there.
We're
Okay.
just
You can, talk idly as long as you don't say anything important.
Okay. Okay.
well, our names are very
We'll wait.
important.
Important. Don't say
We'll
those
wait.
things.
Okay.
You
We'll
do
wait.
not know who these people are. We'll find out in good time. But we can hear that mic pretty well.
Okay.
But when you're actually reading, you don't have to be close to it, but you should be near it.
So this is
and,
okay?
It seems like it's a good height for all four of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Perfect.
you three are going to pick up pretty well. Elise is not going to pick up so well unless she moves a little closer.
Or
Well,
But
she'll
right now,
it's
it's
all
not
right.
like you guys aren't
It's
like
okay.
a barbershop quartet.
No, no, just for the
All
moment.
right,
That's
Jackie and
next
I-
time. That's next time,
That,
Eric.
oh, no. Okay, well, we're here tonight anyway. This will be
Yeah.
fun.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you for being here. It's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna not say anything important yet either, and I'll leave that out. So I'll leave this on.
It's wonderful to see all of you.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
And Eric said not to do anything. Eric said not to do anything important, but the most important thing, of course, is to thank him for this wonderful, wonderful bookstore.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay! Yay!
Okay. Not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite.
All right, let's see now. We are speaking to the world. We are recording. We're kind of got you all properly identified in most ways as you need to. I think we're ready.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay.
So, yes,
Go for it.
you, Angie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're really thrilled to see all of you. We are the San Francisco Wild Riding Women. At least 4 of us are here. Our dear friend, Catherine Santana Goldman, could not be here tonight, but she is with us in spirit. I'm Angie Minkin.
Robin Michel.
Heather Saunders Estes.
Elise Kazanjian.
And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, we want to thank Eric for having us and for being just this amazing, supportive presence in our community. So one more round of applause for Eric.
Yes.
Bird and Beckett.
Woo! All right.
Okay.
Elise, we're going to turn it over to you and to Paul.
Well, yes, I add my thanks to
my colleagues, and also to Eric. This is the best bookstore in the whole nation because it is. It is absolutely fantastic. So before we start reading some poems, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Paul Oanessian behind me, who plays the oud. It's an 11-string instrument. It's one of the oldest musical instruments in the world. They found drawings of it on Egyptian tombs. Paul has been performing since the age of 8. I know that's young, but I know that's true because he happens also to be my nephew. And he's been performing in the SF Greater Bay Area since the age of 8. He started as a percussionist, and then he moved into other instruments. And in the 1970s, he shifted his musical focus from classical guitar to the oud. And he later formed in the 70s, he formed a trio with a violinist, Greg Mazmanian, and percussionist, Mark Tumajian. And Paul plays what is considered an Armenian-American style, and that means that it's been influenced by the second generation of musicians in the San Francisco Bay Area, in Los Angeles, which has a huge Armenian community, and also an oud instrument-playing musicians, and in New York. He has performed with John Belazdikian, and if you saw Steven Spielberg's Schiller's List, the soundtrack on that was the oud, and that was played by John Belazdikian, who is a colleague of Paul's and also one of his mentors. In the late 1970s, Paul began a long career of performing for belly dance events with percussionist Robert Nakashian. For the last 16 years, he has been playing with Surin Baronian and Rowan Storm and some other musicians at a camp called Middle Eastern Music and Dance Camp in Mendocino. And every year, this camp draws over 300 musicians and attendees. So it's very well known. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Paul and the oud.
Thank you, Auntie. Thank you. So, thanks to my aunt for this opportunity. I wasn't really quite sure exactly what my role here was. Well, I guess I am now. So, I'm going to play a few different selections. The first one is well, I guess I should back up and say I wasn't expecting to be talking or introducing any music, but I decided rather quickly that I would just play everything in sort of non-standard time signatures, and I hope you like it. So this was this tune was in like the key of A, basically A minor. So there's no funny quarter tones or semitones of Near Eastern music, and the tempo was a 10/8. 10. It was a 10, and so it doesn't feel like, you know, something odd. It's it just kind of rolls along. But it's a 3, a 2, a 2, and a 3, and that was the time signature of that particular tune. This next one's going to be in 6, and also I don't really know how much you want me to talk about this, about what I'm doing. No talking? Right on. one more. Let's try something. This one? Hijaz Mandara. Hijaz Mandara. So Hijaz is like the scale or the mode. Mandara is sort of the style. And that was in 7. Thank you. Thank you.
That was so marvelous. That was just.
Let's see.
Here.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yay. That was just fabulous. I really didn't know what to expect when Elise said, how about we have this oud player, my nephew, come. And it was just so delightful, and I can't wait to see you perform again. It was beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. You've really made this incredibly special. I want to introduce my dear friend Angie Minkin now. Of course, many of you know her, but you might not know that she's an award-winning Pushcart Prize-nominated poet who loves making chicken soup and fantasizes about baking wedding cakes. Her work has been published in Birdie, Loch Raven Review, The MacGuffin, Rattle, Swamp Ape Review, and elsewhere. Poems are also forthcoming in SRPR, Honorable Mention, the 2024 Editor's Prize, and in Swim Every Day, which is a very big deal. Now, I bet many of you who aren't poets here don't know about that, but Swim Every Day is a really big deal. And Angie's chapbook, Balm for the Living, was published in 2023. But best of all, Angie's my friend. Give it up for Angie.
Well, thank you, Robin, and thank you to my fellow poets, Elise and Heather and Robin. We're sorry that Catherine couldn't be here tonight, but I'm thrilled that all of you are here. I'm really happy that Kathy Bruin is here from OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, because many of us met in a poetry class at OLLI, and that's sort of how we formed. So it's just a wonderful resource to the community, just as BART and Beckett is a wonderful resource to the community. Then we met Elise through Kathleen McClung, who is an incredible poetry teacher and mentor for many of us. So yay. I mean, it's just so wonderful having the whole community here. I've got many of my dance buddies and good friends from book club. So it's just fabulous. So the first poem I'm going to read is dedicated to my dear daughter-in-law, Katie Kildow, who we just spent Thanksgiving with and is an amazing cook. Ode to Katie's Biscuits. Praise biscuits that rise as high as heaven and melt soft in your mouth. Katie shares a few hints. You need butter. Lots of butter, cold butter, more than you think to mix flaky dough. And if you handle the batter too roughly, well, I'm sorry, but you'll end up with bricks. Katie's one tough cookie, who bakes her famous walnut cranberry pie with her right hand, crafts a lavender gin cocktail with the left, and eyes in the back of her head make sure women stay safe in her downtown LA bar. She'll 86 you if you make trouble, always with that megawatt smile of hers that lights up my son. Every so often, she tells us that she loves us. One day, she may reveal her entire biscuit recipe. Oh, praise that day, and praise the sweet life she and my son have built together, brick by solid brick. Thank you. So this is such a fun book because we've got poems and recipes, and the recipe here for the biscuits are not Katie's biscuits because I don't have that recipe yet. My next poem is called How to Prepare Stuffing, and this is in honor of my mother, who, always made the traditional stuffing for Thanksgiving. And today is actually the anniversary of her death many, many years ago. But I've been thinking about her all day, and of course I always think about her, especially this time of year. How to prepare stuffing. Every year, I pull out your stuffing recipe, hand-scrawled. The scratch paper is yellowed, but your instructions are clear and precise. Sauté fresh breadcrumbs in butter. Make cornbread from the Jiffy Mix. Don't eat too much. Finely dice onion and celery. Carefully measure the sage and poultry seasoning. Add 2 eggs and broth to moisten. Your writing looks like mine. You went off to work early that chilly morning. Too lazy to say goodbye. I heard you leave. You left minestrone soup for my lunch in my favorite little white enamel bowl. I'd like to ride a beam of light to that long ago morning. I'd shake that selfish girl out of her warm bed to give her mother a kiss goodbye. I panicked this morning when I couldn't find your notes. My heart cracked like the little white bowl that was cast aside when the house was sold. When I could breathe again, I remembered to look in the drawer where I keep hidden treasures. To begin the ritual, I get out the yellow mixing bowl. Our molecules merge like tiny crystals. I look in the mirror and see your face. Thank you. And my next poem is called Anthony's Peaches. And as Bonnie knows, my husband Dan and I have a ritual of going to the farmer's market almost every Saturday. And one of our favorite vendors is Anthony Galpin. And he just has the best peaches and the best satsumas. So this is an ode to his peaches. Anthony's Peaches. We rise early on Saturday mornings to scout the best produce at Alamany Farmers Market. Blackberries from Rainbow Farms, popping with flavor. Earthy early girl tomatoes at Two Dog Farms. But it's Galpin Farms and Anthony's Peaches we adore, golden red, capturing the sun. Anthony and Lisa are high school sweethearts, married more than 20 years, and we can taste the love. A family working their 25 acres, touching each peach only once, tree to market, picking and packing, 16 varieties of stone fruit in summer, satsumas in winter. They work the markets with their kids, nephews and nieces. We chat about rain and heat, aging moms, football, graduations. At home, we lay the fruit on a paper towel. This week, it's the Angela, my favorite. And we can't wait to taste that luscious tang, the best peaches ever, the farm's energy, the summer's light. And for my last poem, I'd like to read a poem from my chapbook, Balm for the Living. And I was talking to Bonnie today when we were talking about the need to remember that there is joy in life, even though it seems pretty dark right now. And it's been kind of scary, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we need to remember that there's joy. And so this is an erasure poem. It was taken from an article in the Chronicle that was written in 2020 that is by George McCalman, who interviewed the choreographer Alonzo King. And so an erasure poem, you have the whole article and you just sort of highlight words and phrases that weave together into a poem. Jump into joy. You are divine artists, keeping the mystery. Everyone is some kind of artist, illuminating human beings, luminescent souls, playing roles, moving higher on the precipice. Hell abounds, storm brews churning, but transformation, all that is dark and heavy, gotta go. We are that transition, that transformation. Jump into joy now. The later game doesn't work. Single-minded, lead yourself into victory. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. And now I have the honor of introducing Elise Kazanjian, who is a dear friend, a poet, a writer, and she has a collection of over 100 fountain pens. She's won several awards, including the Chicagoland Poetry Contest and being selected for San Francisco Poets 11. She is in the Ina Coolbrith Circle and the Marin Poetry Center anthologies. Her work is also found in New Verse News, Persimmon Tree, the San Francisco Chronicle, Fog and Light as seen through the eyes of the poets who live here. And Elise, as you will soon see, is a marvelous reader, and she's been featured with Coastside Poetry, Rivertown Poets, and the Marin Poetry Center's traveling show. So let's give it up for Elise.
That was a fabulous introduction. I'm glad you're recording this, Eric, because I want to use that again. My first poem, I'm going to read 3 poems from this book. And my first poem is called Apricots, and it's for my mother, Alice Shahbaz. And the apricots that she used, and I use only, are Blenheim apricots. They're taken from the Blenheim Palace that Winston Churchill grew up in. And there are a few places that sell Blenheims. I get mine from Morgan Hill from Andy's Orchards. And I gave him a plug in the book because it's so fantastic. Okay, so this is called Apricots. I bite into a plump, summer-ripe apricot, savory sweet juice oozing down my chin. A perfect golden orb, honeysuckle flavor explodes my mouth, sends scandalous shivers of pleasure through my body. Every bite brings back my mother, her hair tied into a scarf, teaching me how to make ziran jam. She remembers the sugary apricots from her childhood in Kadıköy, Istanbul. She shares tales of her Armenian grandmother and aunts preparing pots of apricot lamb stews, or the Christmas anushabor pudding of dried apricots and fruits. She delights me with her notion that apricots are in our DNA and are one of Armenia's symbols, along with Mount Ararat and pomegranates. As we stir our simmering pans, she tells me the apricot tree wood is used for the duduk, a reed instrument dating 2,000 years ago. Later, I hear the duduk's mournful tones on the soundtrack of Game of Thrones. For me, apricots are summer, sweaty hot weather, steamy, fragrant kitchens, clean mason jars to fill with frothy jams and savor later. They are my comfort on days that loom unpleasant, the balm that gives sweetness to survive adversity. Thank you. This poem is called Beets Are the Color of Love. The beet leaf recipe was the one where my mother, father, and I shared the kitchen under what felt like a canopy of love. A simple dish, onions, beet leaves, rice, olive oil, salt, pepper, blending into a remarkable savory dish. We felt virtuous using all parts of the beets. We washed, cut off stems and leaves, wrapped the beets in foil to bake later. My father cut stems. I chopped onions. My mother ribboned the leaves to layer in the heated oiled skillet. While the pan cooked, my father, who managed an American rug factory in China, would tell us the history of natural plants used to dye carpets. Listening intently, I conjured images of ancient weavers 2,000 years ago using our kitchen ingredients. Beets for red, turmeric for yellow, berries for dark blue, walnuts for black, onion skins for brown, dandelion roots for purple. Now, so many years later, when I cook this favorite dish, it brings back joyful family memories that nourish me and feed my soul. And this is the last poem, and it's called Thoughts of You Braiding My Days with Joy. And this is for my husband, Ralph Kazanjian, who died last year, but he was, we were together for 65 wonderful years. You sip a thimble of syrupy Armenian coffee. Each bitter-sweet swallow smiles the gentle morning away. Your eyes trace the contours of white sailboats below, slowly rocking an aquatic park, quietly, just like you, sitting on your bed, by the window holding my hand. We giggle, read each other's muddied coffee grounds, tell what we see in the cups. You see a star in mine, and we cheer for the money that will come. Yours reveals a candle, a prophecy of wisdom, one of your cherished traits I have known for 62 years. We watch life below zero, grateful we don't live in Alaska, but sympathetic to the Athabascans and indigenous people who survived persecution. After, I read you Joy Harjo poems and how her Creek Nation ancestors survived. You recount how your father, at the turn of the century, escaped the waves of Armenian genocide. Immigrating from Van to America, he learned most of his relatives were killed by the Turks. He vowed to bring his few remaining family to this country. We share hours together when darkness thickens the sky, listen to global news, discuss recent books, everything that piques your creative mind. You whisper, your brown-lashed eyes embrace me, and you braid my days with joy. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Heather Saunders Estes, a wonderful colleague in this wonderful group that I belong to. And Heather is the author of 3 books of poetry, and her work is found in multiple journals. Her latest work, All in Measure, a book of hours, 2020 to 2022, intimately chronicles gratitudes, fears, and contemplations during the pandemic years using the ancient format of the day. One of the book's poems was nominated for a Pushcart Prize by Blue Light Press, which is fantastic to get a poem nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Learn more at www.heathersaundersestes.com. Heather, come on up.
Good evening. I'm going to read 3 poems from this. There's more than 3 of mine in here, so don't let this stop you from buying the book, because you will have heard 3 of them, but I am going to read 3. Rising like cumulus clouds. Klondike and Sutter's Mill gold miners snuggled in bed with their sourdough starters, lusting for morning pancakes, evening biscuits. New sourdough Jills and Jacks search for knowledge and fortune in San Francisco's foggy serpentine hills, growing startups with sugar from venture capitalists, all dining on crusty sour batard. Our sourdough starter first grew in Chicago, fed by my daughter's close friend, moved to New York, shared a Boston dorm, flew west to San Francisco in a dirty green backpack, wrapped safely in a pair of socks. In a drip-encrusted cherry preserves jar, it thrives, sometimes forgotten or frozen in the back of the fridge, underfed, overfed, till it fizzes, stirred back into soft slurry. Effervescence of desire with a smell of fresh bread, a touch of over-the-top ripeness, growing like love and chemistry. It's another one with my daughter in mind. In fact, the recipe is my daughter Laurel's red velvet cupcakes. And there are some red velvet cupcakes, not hers, but I'm sure they're very good over there. Red velvet cupcakes. Red velvet cupcakes with almond cream cheese icing, still tenderly breathing from the oven. Crunch of sugar cake crust in the midst of sweet softness. Red from the cochineal bugs, unabashedly and gloriously fake. Like stripes of fuchsia in a millennial's hair. A classy surprise, pleased by its own display. I was thinking about this, and I wore a ring that is my great-grandmother's, which is when I'm thinking about, these seasons make us think, and of our families and our families' families, and tea ceremony. With the shape of a giant bosque pear and an acorn squash's ridged belly, my silver teapot sits unobserved on the highest kitchen shelf, pondering generations of family rituals. When it is revived by my tall friend, an iridescent dark patina catches the light. Oxidation and age have painted a frozen aurora. I polish the pointed conical top and sleek angled sides to a satin sheen, fingers blackened with metallic scent. On a whim, I leave the dark bloom under its rounded belly to lick up like blue-orange flames between 4 tarnished feet. The soft silver reflects the pale blue sky, pastel petit fours, salmon dill triangles, rose-flowered teacups, monogram spoons. In the metal, our faces are funhouse mirrored, twisting and faceted. Darjeeling leaves spooned in, the steaming tea steeps. The pot is heavy and hot. An ebony handle, cool in my hand, curves into a question mark, perfectly weighted for me to pour companionship into waiting teacups. The task well remembered from its service with my great-grandmother. Thank you. And it is my pleasure to introduce Robin. There you are, Robin. Robin was born in Utah, which you'll know after you read some of her poems and her recipes, and moved to Northern California at the age of 17. Her poetry and prose appears in many journals, including a commended poem in Passion Fruit and a flash memoir in Long Ridge Review, where she was a finalist for the 2023 Anne C. Barnhill Prize for Creative Nonfiction. Robin is the author of Things Will Be Better and Bountiful, Comstock Review 2024, winner of the Jessie Beyer Niles Poetry Chapbook Contest, one full-length poetry collection, Beneath a Strawberry Night Sky, that just came out recently, and editor of How to Begin, Poems, Prompts, and Tips and Writing Exercises from the Fresh Ink Poetry Collective, both by Raven and Wren Press, of which she is the editor and the publisher of this book. You can contact her at robinmichelwriter.com. Come on up, Robin. And it's a beautiful book, and it's thanks to her visual sense that it is quite so beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah, thanks so much. And I am really, really glad that Angie mentioned Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, because I am of our San Francisco wild riding women, I am the newbie to San Francisco. And it was difficult for me to find community at first. And it was through Ollie that I did find community. I took every writing class that I could possibly take. So I've been in Kathleen McClung's wonderful classes. And I think the original group grew out of Diane Frank's Blue Light Press. So, and Elise Kazanjian is the newest member of our group. We started in 2017. But Elise, she's just fantastic, and you know, our paths cross when you're writing poetry in San Francisco. You're bound to run across all these fabulous people everywhere you go. So I'm just so grateful to Bird and Beckett for the community here, for Ollie for the community there, and mostly to these wild writing women. Just thank you. Yes, I was born in Utah, and when the book was getting ready for the printer, I asked my husband Dan to take a look at it. You know, you always want as many pairs of eyes to look at something as possible. And after he read my section, he made a comment, maybe your section should be called Recipes for the Utah Poor. Now I want to say that I've stepped my game up since working with these wonderful women. And the book happened because one time we meet once a month for to share other people's poetry and then to critique one of our own. And it just so happened that we all came with a food-related poem one day. And it was just like, eureka. We've got to do something with this, and that's how it started. You know, this crazy idea that is now in many hands. I see, which is really exciting. So but I want to say that I did the roasted beets the other day, and Elise is not. She's not boasting about those apricots, because that is the best apricot jam I have ever had in my life. No, I didn't make it. She gave me a jar. But anyway. So this is Putting on the Ritz. And for some of us of a certain age, you might know what I'm talking about. And the title and one of the lines in the poem comes from the Irving Berlin song with the same title. How hungry we were, living in that old Mother Hubbard house. In the refrigerator, a jar of Mother's maraschino cherries. Coca-Cola, a stick of margarine. The cupboard bare, or nearly bare. A box of Ritz crackers, printed with a recipe. Mock apple pie. Sugar, flour, cinnamon, an old tin of cream of tartar, lid rusted tight. With a butter knife, we pried it open to our hungry stomach's delight. Roll out half the pastry crust, place in pie plate, stir the pot. Crumble crackers, pour on top. Sprinkle cinnamon and dot with imitation butter. See, if you're an editor, you're changing lines all the time. Okay, okay. So imitation butter on the soggy cracker stew. Roll out remaining pastry, a threadbare cover, flute crust, slide in oven, bake. Mock apple pie, not a real apple inside. Crackers dressed up like $1 million trooper, like Alice's mock turtle, who once thought he was real, but wept when he found out he was just a fraud. After eating ourselves, we still long for real apples, our hunger only temporarily sated. Thank you. Yeah, you know mock apple pie. Okay, I made it more than once. That's a little scary. Okay, the next poem I'm going to read came out of, there's this marvelous poet called Jane Wong, and she wrote a book called How Not to Be Afraid of Absolutely Everything, or something like that. And she probably writes about hunger the best I've ever seen. And I took a workshop from her, and she wanted us to make up words and insert them in a poem. So this is the result. Thou shalt not swear on feasty days. We were so famhagacious, watching Mama baste the turkey, its skin brown crimple gleamed, the feasty aroma, not famine, food sweat, moistening the kitchen air. The hammer clock beat out time to the whoosh blast of the open oven. Are my little darlings famhagacious? Mama grinned, promising each one of us starvelings the wishbone. How would we divide one wishbone between 3? How did Mama divide her heart between 4, 5, so many more? Damn it, I frizzle-singed my wig again, Mama said. The frowny fault hammer clock, its silent pettifogging. But what did we care? Our bellies antisalivating, fullness ache. Our hearts cardovelling. Mama, ours. And let's see. This is a poem, Grandma Louie's Pumpkin Stew. She carved the orange pumpkin in 2 pieces, a large pulpy tureen and matching lid that fit together like the wedding rings she wore. I'd watch her reach in and pull out a wet, tangled yarn ball filled with seeds. She scraped the curved walls clean while we recited a Mother Goose rhyme about Peter, Pumpkin Eater, who kept his wife in a pumpkin shell. Under the faucet, she'd rinse slippery white seeds and then lay them out to sunbathe on a dented cookie sheet. Her green eyeshadow flecked with gold matched the avocado stove where a heavy iron kettle simmered over a bright blue flame. From a silver flask, she'd sneak a sip of vodka. The simmering stew's hot breath filled the kitchen with a savory cumin scent and exchanged a syncopated riff with the cinnamon and cloves bubbling on a burner's copper-bottomed pan, while she bopped around the kitchen floor in her size 5 slippers, waving a wooden spoon in the air like a big band conductor, and hummed along to Dixieland jazz flowing from her stereo. It was always summer in California, the proof visible in Grandma's plump legs tanned nutmeg brown, and in the aquamarine kidney bean pool that we could see waiting for us out the window above the sink with its cock-a-doodle-doo curtains crowing in harmony, where every new day promised surprises, such as serving stew from a real pumpkin shell, just like the one where Mrs. Peter Pumpkin Eater, under house arrest, was plotting her escape, bite by desperate bite. Thank you. And I'm going to read a poem that's in this book that actually I want to really thank Elise for. She was, before I met Elise, she was a judge for the Soul Making Keats contest, which a very big deal. And Kathleen McClung, you know, I mean, it just, and this received an award in 2020, and then we sheltered in place, and I didn't get to read it at their ceremony, but I get to read it today. And Elise was the judge and sent me the most wonderful, wonderful email. So even before she joined our group, I was just crazy about her. In praise of figs, friendship, and love. Take from the small brown egg carton 2 pale green figs, lovingly arranged by your friend Barbara. Pale green figs spilling open to reveal the delicate fruit resembling coral-colored roe. Pale green figs, fish from the tree growing in her yard. A home you have come to love, but never as much as you love her. Place in the pale green salad bowl the dark ruffled leafy greens and chopped scallions. The white and green rings a wonderful tangy surprise. Throw in enough plump red table grapes to fill the large and tender hand of the man you love. Let the sweet juices of the fig trickle out to touch lettuce, onion, grape. just as the love you feel for this woman and for this man spills into the quiet moments of the day. Blessing this evening meal. Praise your friend and her fig tree. Praise this man you met after you both thought you were done with love. And praise the deliciousness of fig, taste you only acquired now as you enter the winter of your life. Thank you. So, yeah, it was love that brought me to San Francisco. So, as Angie mentioned, our good friend Catherine Santana Goldman could not be here today, and Angie invited me to read one of Catherine's poems so that you get a sample of her. And before I read her poem, I'm just going to say something about the former U.S. poet laureate Billy Collins, who was in the New York Times this Sunday in the book review section. And I've heard him say this before, which is what he doesn't like to see, what he avoids, and I'm paraphrasing, but if it talks about mom or dad, if a poem talks about mom or dad, he doesn't want to see it. So I'm just saying the Billy Collins way isn't the wild writing women's way, as you can see from the poems we've read so far. And so we will end with this poem tonight. The Silver Spaghetti Spoon, or Packing Up My Mother's Life. It has an epigraph. When you turned into 100 rooms, I returned each month as a door that opened only once. Yanni. My mother's vision is slowly dissolving. No longer safe, she is leaving her home of 56 years. We pack her life into cardboard boxes, unearth forgotten treasures. Each holds a bit of fragile family history. We exhume family celebrations when her 3 sisters were still alive. Sunday evenings at their mother's table that snaked down the hall with each new family member, an umbilical cord connecting us to our matriarch. We sort, I listen. Each item is greeted with the same deliberation. Shall she keep it? Who could use it? Do I need it? Among her sterling silver, a spaghetti serving spoon. It glimmers, purchased for a special pasta dinner. She recalls when it was used, sees her full independent life reflected in its surface. Life-worn fingers smudge the image. I will keep this. Yeah. So thank you.